Hi guys, my name is Amelia and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to make a crystal collection tour type of thing. And it's partially because I did my tarot collection video and I mentioned like a lot of my crystals there, and I thought, you know what? I want to talk about the crystals as well. Now, before we get into this video, I have a few things I wanted to point out. First, I just wanted to make this video for fun because I personally like seeing a lot of crystal collection tours. I like seeing different crystals and learning about how people use them and what they like to do with them and such. So I thought that that might be fun for anybody interested who's watching to see my personal opinions and such about that. But I will say that for this video, I'm mostly just going to go through every individual crystal, and I'm not really going to talk about how I use it necessarily because that will take some time. And so I actually want to make another video soon, I don't know when, where I will explain more about how I personally use crystals and my overall thoughts about them. But for this video, we're just doing the collection. So we're just gonna talk about the rainbow assortment that I have going on here. Another thing I wanted to point out is that while I do this little tour, I'm not trying to convince anybody to buy anything, because I personally think there's a lot of toxic consumerism in the spiritual community. And so while I'm talking about this collection, I want you to know that a lot of it was gifted to me. I will be talking about things I did purchase and where I purchased them from, but a lot of it's been happening over the course of a few years since I started getting into crystals. But I don't really want to come across as somebody who's just spending a ton of money on crystals, because that's not true. I mean, I do spend money on crystals, but I don't want it to come across as some weird consumeristic thing. I do have a whole video about toxic spirituality that you can watch where I kind of cover my opinions about consumerism, and ultimately one of the conclusions I come to is that it's up to you to decide what is healthy for you and what's not. And personally, purchasing tons and tons of crystals for hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars just isn't something that I want to do, but I do enjoy having them in my space, and I do enjoy using them. Alright, so anyway, now that those little caveats or explanations are done, said, out of the way, we're going to get into the bulk of this video. But before we do, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, because it really helps out me and my channel, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the way that I'm going to format this particular video is I'm going to go by colors. So I'm going to start with the black and white crystals that I have, because those are very grounded and cleansing energies, and then we're going to move through the rest of them by the colors of the rainbow or the colors of the chakras. I really do like to think about crystals associated with different chakra work, because I personally really enjoy chakra work, especially meditations and focusing on that energy, those energy fields that flow through our bodies. It's something that's really helped me to heal as a person and to really narrow down on certain aspects of my life where I am feeling pain, discomfort, or I just need to do some shadow work. So I will be going through it in that order, and I will leave some timestamps for each color below if you're interested. But otherwise, yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the black crystals, because those are ones that have very grounding energy. They have a protective energy about them, and I don't really have that many dark crystals, so I'll probably have to get more at some point, but for now we'll just talk about what I do have. I also want to mention that I don't know all of the chemical makeups of every crystal that I have, nor do I know what every single crystal does, which is partially why I view it in this sort of chakra method of organization, because every color has a certain vibration, has a certain meaning to it, and that's the easiest way for me to work with crystals. Otherwise I have to sit down and look up on my phone what the specific meaning of every crystal is. I do know a few, and of the ones that I do know, I will explain them, and of the ones that I don't, I'll probably just put some notes up on the screen so that way you know, but ultimately it's a work in progress. I'm still learning, still educating myself about this, and it's something that will take a lot of time. So forgive me, I do not have a wealth of knowledge regarding all the crystal meanings, but I will do my best. So the first black crystal that I have is this black tourmaline, and I will do close-ups on these. Also, if I mispronounce them, I apologize, but I'm going to do my best. So I have this black tourmaline. It actually came in this little packet of crystals from my friend. My friend went to a farmer's market and there was a lady selling crystals, like beginner crystals. So you're gonna hear me mention this a lot because the crystals that I received were in this like little beginner kit and there were quite a few of them. So I do still have them and I use them a lot. I got these as a gift back in 2019, I believe. And so I've had them for quite some time, and even though I had them, I wasn't super into crystals until like more recently, so that's the tea on that. But I have this black tourmaline and it's about balancing energies, it's very protective, and it's a really good stone for grounding. And I actually keep this particular stone on top of my dark wood tarot deck. I took my dark wood tarot out of the package and put it on my altar, and I just set this stone right on top of it for the October season because this is the season of shadow work and diving into the darker aspects of life. So this has been on my altar for that purpose. But yeah, just this tiny little black tourmaline. The next small stone that I have is this hematite, and I sort of forget how hematite does, but I do know that my friend absolutely loves hematite. This friend will be mentioned a lot because we talk about crystals all the time. But yeah, she loves hematite. This particular hematite I purchased from a metaphysical shop and I keep it on my cosmic tarot. So again, if you've watched my tarot collection and oracle collection videos, you'll know that I mentioned certain crystals being paired with each deck, and that's just something I do in my personal practice. I love to give every single deck a crystal, usually associated with the deck's meaning, or I just kind of choose it intuitively and it sort of blends really nicely with my deck. So I do have this little hematite that goes on the cosmic tarot. I also keep a piece of hematite in my car, which I'll explain later in more of the obscure section of this video. But yeah, this is my only piece of hematite in my house though. It's kind of shiny. I like that. So I also wanted to mention crystal jewelry in this video, and my friend made these beautiful little obsidian like earrings. So actually she bought the obsidian moons, I believe, from Etsy, and then she just attached these little like earring bits to them so I can wear them as earrings. And it's really nice because obsidian is also very protective and I really like that, and these are very gorgeous to wear. I also love that they're like moon shaped. They are a bit heavy to wear though, so while I do wear them on occasion, they can be a bit heavy because it's like a stone, it's a rock on your ear, but I really do like them. I just have only worn them like sparingly because I can't wear them for too long or my ears start to hurt, but I do think they're quite lovely. I do want more obsidian. I want more of a lot of things, but because I don't believe in just purchasing tons and tons of things and spending money when it's not necessary, I don't really do that. But I will say that I can't really use these in my like practice because they are a piece of jewelry, but I do have quite a few pieces of jewelry in here which I will go into. But yeah, so these are the little earrings, and they mostly sit next to my selenite because I don't really have a better place for them, and these are the only crystal earrings that I actually own. Alright, so I also have some rocks in my collection that kind of get clumped in with the crystals, and one of them is tektite. I don't know the full chemical makeup, nor do I know what tektite does, but it's this really flashy stone. I really do enjoy it. I think it's really pretty. It's definitely interesting, and the most fascinating part about tektite is that it is not heavy like at all. So if I hold a rock of a similar size, which I think, hold on, I have one. So this little geode piece is actually a bit smaller than my tektite, but this is heavier than this. They're almost the same, but this one's slightly heavier, and as you can see, it's a little bit smaller in size. And that's just because tektite is extremely light, and I keep this one on my altar and it just kind of blends in. Sometimes I forget it's there because my altar setup, it's like this black organization thing, and this is where that sits, and so it's kind of hard to see and I often forget about it, but it is quite an interesting piece. It's definitely strange, and I like that it's like super light. I feel like it'd be really good with meditations and such. I just don't really use it, but it fits like perfectly in my hands, and so that's something I really appreciate about it. This tektite piece I found in my garage from the previous tenant who had a lot of stones and rocks like just left behind, so that's where this came from, and I just kind of adopted it into my sort of collection. So this next piece, I don't know if it quite qualifies for the black section, but it's just a very dark piece, so I'm putting it in here, and that's this little slab of labradorite. So labradorite has this beautiful shine to it, and I recently learned that it's because of the way light refracts and changes as it goes through the stone. That's pretty cool. I am learning more and more about labradorite. I do know that it was quite popular for a while, but this is my first piece of it, and it's the first time, like, I just bought this off of Etsy like less than a week ago. So it's fairly new, and I haven't really used it for anything, and I still need to learn more about its properties. However, it has a beautiful flash, which I will show a close-up of. I do think I'll invest in more labradorite at some point, maybe even a higher quality piece at some point, but for now this is what I have, and I keep this on my windowsill because labradorite is one of those stones that can deal with sunlight, and it doesn't get like a lot of direct sunlight, but it does get a lot of sunlight in the space that it's in. But I kind of wanted to move my crystals around more so they weren't all just in the same space, because right now, well, before there were just tons of crystals all around my tarot decks, and that was it, and I felt like it was just a little too chaotic, so I've been trying to spread them out throughout the space. So this is on the windowsill, and because it's so dark, it would take thousands of years to like mess with the way it looks with sunlight, so I feel pretty comfortable about leaving it there. I'm actually very picky about, or very like scared of leaving my crystals in the sunlight, because I hear so many stories about how they lose their color, how they change, and I don't really want that to happen to any of my crystals. And a lot of my crystals are quartz based, so I don't really want to like mess with that and have them become discolored in any way. So I'm very, very tentative about putting my stones like near windowsills or in rooms of my home that get a lot of sunlight. So yeah, I'm trying to get stones that will not become discolored in sunlight, but it's hard to find them, and I just haven't gained the confidence to like put any of the ones I already own on the windowsill. Hello. Okay, so I'm currently editing the crystal video right now. That's like my keyboard setup. And I actually got back from a rock and gem show this past Friday. So I'm going to be showing off the gems and crystals that I purchased from that show, and I'll be showing that after every single section going on from this video because I don't really want to refilm the whole video. So yeah, enjoy the random flashes and snippets of crystals that I purchased at the end of every section, more or less. That was news from Amelia in editing. Okay, so the next section of stones, because that was all my black stones, is going to be the white and clear stones. So I do have quite a few white and clear stones. I think that I might have the majority of my stones might be white and clear, and I'm going to do the large ones first. So the first one is this massive geode. It's this beautiful geode that has tons of white crystals in it. The sides are not polished, and they were actually cut with a diamond saw blade. So, fun story about this geode, and most geodes that I have in my house. My boyfriend actually went out and found this in a creek, river thingy somewhere here in Indiana where I live. So I live in Indiana, the USA, and this was just laying around pretty much. And so he collected a bunch of geodes, and we opened them up, and we actually have more that we need to open. The first time we had geodes, we borrowed his dad's diamond saw, and we just sort of cut them that way, so that's why there is like this slight bit on the edge that's unpolished. But then now we're going to try to break them up by just like using a chisel and a hammer and see where we get. But yeah, so I have this beautiful geode, and this actually sits behind me on this dresser that is behind me, so you might see it sometimes in the film, I think. It sits like on this corner by that lamp, so I think you can see it. I have no idea. And the other half, oh my gosh, it's so heavy. It is extremely heavy. This is the other half for it. So it's just one big geode, and it goes together. You can see where the saw kind of like touched it, and then it breaks apart, and we have two. So this other one sits over on my shelf, and it sits next to this like poetry book thing I made when I was younger. And so yeah, these are like just naturally forming here in Indiana, and we found them. We have more to open, and they're huge, and they're just so pretty and sparkly, and I really like that you can just kind of go out and like find them, and it just feels really fun to like do that yourself. versus buying it online, which some crystals are only found in certain parts of the world. So like, I don't think I'll find any labradorite in Indiana. So those are mostly display things. So the way I use a lot of my geodes is they're mostly on display, pretty much, as just some pretty thing to have in my space. We have more in the front room area. They're a bit discolored. I think they have a bit of ironization to them. I'm not quite sure, but they are like darker brown. We also have another one that's very glittery, but I just kind of put them on display. I don't really use them like for any spiritual purposes. So this next white crystal is selenite, aka satin spar, and it might be the most used crystal in my entire collection. Selenite is amazing. It's like the perfect cleanser. I know that people talk about quartz being like a great cleanser slash charging crystal, like great for everything. Selenite is amazing for cleansing, and I honestly prefer it over quartz when it comes to cleansing. So this selenite bar pretty much sits on my little organizer, and whenever I need to charge crystals or cleanse crystals, whenever I just need to get them back and reconnected to their original energy, especially if I've been carrying them around or if they've been on a deck for quite a long time, I will just set them on this selenite slab and let them sit overnight and cleanse. I absolutely love this thing. Whenever I have jewelry, I'll put my jewelry on here as well and let it sit overnight, and I can rewear it the next day, or I can just put it back on the shelf. And it's kind of like a nice way to like reset the crystal and like finish like cleansing it of its day's work. This is amazing. I've also like started to use it to flow the energy through my chakras to kind of bring that energy up and out, and it's like a really nice cleansing thing to do for yourself. I also set it on the table whenever I do client readings, so I'll put this on the table and then I'll have like other crystals around it to kind of have this pure energy like in the room. And sometimes I will have some double pointed crystals between me or between me and the client, or the client and this crystal, for example, and you know, kind of like enhance the flow of that energy, so that way everybody feels calm, everybody feels nice and safe and protected and pure. And I just love selenite. I will probably invest in more. This is the only piece of selenite that I actually have, but I've been considering investing in more because I just use this so stinking much. It is a very fragile stone, so you have to be very gentle with it because it scratches extremely easily, and it breaks very easily, so you have to be very gentle with selenite. So I typically don't move it too much, even though I use it a lot, but I try to be very careful about moving it around because I don't want to ruin it or break it, because I really do enjoy this stone a lot. I would say that it's definitely my most used stone in my entire collection, but I wouldn't say it's like my favorite necessarily, just my most used. All right, next up, we're gonna dive into the quartzes. So clear quartz and regular quartz. So first I have this clear quartz point. It's very, very, very small, and this was part of that farmer's market crystal starter package that my friend gifted to me. So that's where that came from. It's very tiny, and this one actually sits on my Ancestral Path Tarot, which I use as an oracle. Again, you can find out the reasons why in my tarot collection video, or sorry, my oracle collection video. I might have mentioned it in both, I can't remember. But yeah, so I have this like tiny little quartz. I don't really use it for anything else because for a long time this was my only quartz piece, and I just didn't know what to do with it, so it just sat on a deck. Another quartz piece I have is this quartz double pointed pendant necklace thing. So last year my boyfriend gifted this to me from the Renaissance fair that I'm going to in a few days. By the time you see this video, I'll have already gone to it. But yeah, he got it from the Renaissance fair and he gifted it to me, and this is my most worn piece of crystal jewelry just because I love that it's like this beautiful quartz. It's nice cleansing energy. It feels very pure. I love that about it, and it just looks stunning. So I really, really love this. It's a really good gift for me. and again, probably my most worn crystal jewelry piece. I also have this double-pointed, very pristine quartz point. So it's double-pointed at the end, and it is so clear. Now this was very generously given to me by my friend's father. So I was hanging out with her. He collects crystals and he has some massive geodes, and we were talking about them. He showed me some of his new opals. They were like gorgeous. He invests a lot of time, research, and money, of course, into these pieces in his home, and they were just incredible, and we were kind of talking about that, and yeah, he gifted me 2 pieces, so I'll show you the other one later, but this is one of the pieces he gifted to me, this beautiful quartz, and at first I thought this was glass. Like, I knew there was a scratch on it, but I really thought it was glass and not real quartz, because it's just so perfect and so clean, and I've never seen a piece of quartz like this clear. And I didn't say anything to him because he was like, this is like really great quartz. It's like A++ quality. I don't even know how stones are graded, but the grade A quality, right? And I was like, oh wow. So I took it home and I did a test with it by trying to scratch glass, and it scratched the glass. So this is definitely not glass. So that's crazy. And that's a fun tip. If you ever want to test your crystals to see if they are like quartz or if they are glass, you rub them or scratch them against a piece of glass, and if the glass gets scratched, then it's quartz, or at least it's not glass, because glass on glass won't do anything. It'll just rub, but there will be no scratches left behind. But if you do quartz on glass, it scratches. Obviously this doesn't work for all stones. Like selenite I think is softer than glass, so you can't test it that way, but you can test quartz that way, and that was how I tested this, and it's legit, and I use it a lot now in all kinds of different settings. Another piece of quartz that I have, it's actually 2 pieces. I'm just going to show them at the same time, and that's this regular quartz that was found outside. So just out there in the yard. There's a field behind me, and this is where these were found. So these are just like quartz pieces. They're not clear, they're just regular quartz. This one sits on my desk to offer more cleansing and pure energy, and this one sits on top of my Wild Unknown Archetypes Oracle deck by Kim Kranz, and so that's where this one's home is. But yeah. I also have a piece of smoky quartz, which I got in that farmer's market package. So this was, again, one of the first crystals I ever got because I was gifted the starter kit. So this is smoky quartz, and it sits up on top of my Ethereal Visions tarot. One thing you will notice is that a lot of my beginner crystals from that kit are on top of some of my first tarot decks, and that's just because that's when I started. I don't know what made me start doing it, but one day I just started putting crystals on top of tarot decks, and then I just never quit. So that's where this one sits. And most of the crystals that are on top of tarot decks I don't really use outside of that. So they typically are just on their deck, and then they come out with the deck during client readings and they sit on the table nearby, but they're almost always with their deck, so I don't really separate them or use them for any other purposes. This is some Angel Aura quartz, which is very pretty. It's also very clear, and I cannot tell if it's glass or if it's just quartz. I looked it up to try to figure out more about Angel Aura quartz, and it says it's quartz, like clear quartz that they put like chemicals on, like they paint like a sheen on it, or like they add chemicals to it somehow to make it more rainbowy and have that iridescent look to it. I will say it's very pretty, but I don't know, it's definitely not like super natural. Like it's not a naturally, like not naturally occurring like this. Now, one thing that I haven't fully decided is whether or not I enjoy man-made crystals. So I personally like crystals that feel more natural and authentic, like they're from the earth, nothing's been altered or changed about them, aside from their shape maybe, or being polished up. I don't really mind if a crystal is polished, so that way you can see how the crystal looks a bit cleaner in a nicer way. And I don't really mind when crystals are reshaped to be towers or mushrooms or spheres or tumbled. I don't mind that too much, but this particular crystal has been changed chemically. So chemicals have been added to make it more iridescent and holographic, and I personally don't know how I feel about that. similar to how other crystals are, especially ones made of glass, like opalite. I just personally don't know if I like that. And so because of that, my opinions on certain crystals in my collection are going to be kind of like, because I guess I like to have more naturally occurring stones that haven't been altered too much. You will notice too in my collection that I like when stones are a bit more rough, or at least appear in their natural state, more than tumbles. I do have a ton of tumbles though because they're very affordable, but I actually prefer the rougher cuts and the rough, raw versions of the stones. So that's something to think about as well. I don't know, what do you guys think about this? Like, do you like man-made stones or man-altered stones? Like, I'll mention a couple others as we go on, but I was just wondering, like, what do you think about angel aura quartz? Because it is still quartz, or it's supposed to be. I haven't been able to pass the test because it's so rounded, but the scratch test. But do you think that it's still like, it has its own, energies, it's its own thing? What do you think about like man-made crystals, Because I personally am unsure about them. I don't know if I really like them. But this angel aura quartz actually sits on top of my white Newman tarot, so I do use it on that tarot deck. I might switch it out at some point. I don't know yet. The last piece in my white stone collection is this moonstone piece. Now, I've seen a lot of different moonstones. I've seen rainbow moonstone, which is white with like these black spots in them. I've also seen earth moonstones, I think is what they're called, and they're like more of a brownish, pinkish color. So this one is solid white. It could very well be quartz, to be honest with you. I purchased it off Etsy, and it was supposed to be moonstone, so I'm going to trust that it is, but I don't know if I have a way to prove that. I will say that it does feel different when I wear it versus like my other quartz pendant, so this being my other quartz pendant. This is also more opaque than this one is, but the energies of them feel different, which again could be because of their shape as well. So I'm not really sure, but I do love this one. I purchased it a while ago when I realized that wearing crystal necklaces was the best way to have the energy being carried around with me. I do sometimes carry crystals in my pocket. I'll put them in a little mesh bag, or I'll just put them in my pocket and carry them around, but I'm so scared of losing crystals or forgetting about them and like leaving them in my pants when I like wash my clothes or something, that I just don't really like carrying them around in my pockets. I also don't like carrying them around in my purse because they'll just get buried at the bottom. So that's why I prefer crystal jewelry, specifically necklaces, because I wear a necklace like almost every single day. I'm unused to rings, and earrings can be kind of heavy, especially if they're stones. So that's why I have a lot of necklaces in here, and I keep buying them. So, but yeah, that's moonstone. I will say that what I do know about the moonstone is that it's very feminine energy to me, and it's very like soft and sort of like operates on like a higher realm, and I really like that. So yeah. Okay, so we're finally moving into the colored pieces. So we've done black and white, we're going to move on to red. So the red stones in my collection, they rule over the root chakra, which is all about being grounded, being sturdy, and the root chakra deals with survival and is blocked by fear. It deals with who you are, how safe you feel, and just like your foundation in life, if you will. Now, I struggled healing my root chakra for a long time. I have a video on that, which talks about journaling for the root chakra, and I personally had some struggles with it. I definitely struggled with healing that part of me for like 2 years or so. I definitely have moved on, and I think I now have to heal a blockage in my throat chakra, but we'll get to that once we move up through the chakras. But yeah, so I do have quite a few red stones, not as many as I do white, but I do have a lot of red stones, and I think part of that is just because I had to heal that part of myself. So the first red stone I wanted to talk about were red jasper, because I have 3 pieces of red jasper. I actually purchased this piece of red jasper on my own when I was like, I need to ground myself, I need to heal some parts of me, and this is the stone I chose. And I was going to meditate with this little tumbled stone, and I was like gonna call it a day. This piece of red jasper sits on the Crow tarot deck, which ended up becoming my soul tarot deck, so I feel like that was kind of like really funny that it just aligned so easily. Like I needed help in that space, and then that deck showed up, and I feel like that deck has helped me grow a lot and face a lot of my fears, which is ironic for root chakra work. But yeah, so this piece of red jasper was purchased by me and I keep it there. I also have this tiny piece of red jasper that my mom gifted me for Christmas last year. So she went to the metaphysical shop near me and she was like, I need some crystals for my daughter. She's like stressed all the time, worried all the time, help out, you know? And then this is one of the stones I got for root chakra, and it's about grounding energy, of course. And so this is what she purchased for me, and it's very tiny, and I just kind of keep it up on my tarot shelf. I don't really do much with it because it's so tiny, but it is up there. And then the last piece of red jasper I have, I think this is red jasper, I'm fairly certain, is this piece right here. So this was actually gifted as like an additional thing when I purchased one of my other crystals from Etsy. So sometimes when you purchase crystals from Etsy sellers, they will add on an extra crystal, and this is one of those ones that got added on. I do believe it's red jasper because it just looks like my other ones. And I thought that was very funny because when I purchased this and I got this and I was like, wow, that's the stone that they choose. Like that was the extra stone that this person chose for my order. I remember thinking to myself like that it was so timely because I feel like I've fully healed my root chakra by now. And so it was kind of ironic that this came when I was thinking about how that chapter of my life has closed. So yeah, but this one sits on my windowsill because it is one of the stones that won't really alter too much in the sunlight, and while it is in a shady part of my windowsill, it's still there next to my labradorite. Another stone that sits on the windowsill is goldstone. So I purchased this goldstone, and I remember purchasing it at the time and thinking, this is so perfect and sparkly, like no way this is like a real crystal. And I was correct. I mean, it's considered a crystal, but it is man-made. It's just glass. It's man-made glass, pretty much. And I'm just not a fan of them, so I don't use this for much. It did sit on my altar for a while, but now it has moved to the windowsill next to the red jasper and the labradorite, and I don't do anything with it. The final red stone that I have in my collection is this fire agate. So I love the banding in it. I think that's a really pretty color. It's sort of like a peachy red color. I think it's very sweet and very tiny, and I'm actually holding off on putting it or using it anywhere because I'm waiting for a tarot deck. So I've ordered a few tarot decks, I have my eye on a few others, and once they arrive, this crystal will get one of them, possibly. So I'm waiting for the right tarot deck to put this crystal on, and then it will have a little home. Okay, I forgot that I had this crystal for some reason. It's massive. It was like in the red section, but I thought I was done. I am not. So my largest red crystal that I used a lot in root chakra work was this red carnelian. So I purchased this carnelian egg-shaped crystal on Etsy last year at Christmas time. I actually purchased one for a friend, but because of the sale that they had going, I ended up purchasing one for myself as well, even though I didn't think I needed it, because a lot of people at the time were talking about carnelian helping with relationships, with confidence, with helping attract people into your life that you want in your life, with helping you like become that girl, and I didn't really feel like I needed that. But I actually found that this was such a grounding stone and such a nice stone to roll between my palms during like meditations and during like just quiet moments when I was focusing on my root chakra. And so I feel like this has really helped along with the red jasper. So I think that I purchased it just because I was like, sure, why not? But it ended up being something that I used a lot. It also came with my selenite. I purchased the two at the same time, different shops, but at the same time. And yeah, I used them both a ton. Alright, and that concludes part 1 of the crystal collection tour. So you guys had voted, you said you preferred 2 separate videos, so this was the first one. So stay tuned for the second part 2 of my crystal collection, where I will go through the rest of the colors and kind of explain more on the types of crystals that I have. But anyway, thank you guys for watching today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and again, keep a lookout for part 2. So with that said, I will catch you later.